All right, everybody. Hey, it's 20 Minutes with Bridgette. Today is Tuesday, something or other. Let me see. I think it might be Tuesday the 23rd. All right. So today's topic, and I might have several topics on this, is, you know, your health is basically missing data and information. When your system could start missing that data and information when you're formed as a fetus. You could have genetic abnormalities from your parents, which means that they were missing data and information. If we look at, just to kind of go back, Weston Price, I've done a lot of studying of his, and also, like Rudolf Steiner and Victor Schallenberger. But Weston Price did a study, and I don't know if it was like the 40s or 50s or something like that, but he was a dentist, and he started traveling internationally, and he started photographing indigenous people, native people, smiles and their teeth. And he would actually, research exactly all the things that they were eating because, he started to see that people were starting to be born, especially like white races, with crooked teeth. And what he started to realize, like every time that there was data and information missing, there was especially a chromosomal problem, that you would start to see like one crooked teeth. So indigenous native people eating off the land, their teeth were perfectly straight, showed perfect genetics, perfect diet. And he said that, what happens is that when these people are contaminated with starting off with refined sugars, because sugars are a lot different in nature. And say, for example, you were, sorry, my nose is a little itchy. Say, for example, you were a sugarcane worker and all you had to eat was the fresh sugarcane. It's a food. It has nutritional density. So once you start to refine sugar, and that means that you start taking the brown, natural nutrient part out of it, so that would be molasses. But molasses loses some of its nutrition because it's been forcibly removed from the sugar particle, and the refined leftover stuff that has no nutrition in it is left over. Same with flour, right? So, and we see that there were a lot of weird problems mentally, emotionally, physically, and even wounds from when they started to actually grind. People went from home grinding and little local grinding, which kept a lot of the shaft and the harder parts on the grain. But when they started to get grinders, and where you had companies that actually, ground the flour or got the flour that was depleted because it was really refined, then it has no nutrition in it. And they could find that in Edwardian times, the people were moving towards and choosing, because it was fancier and finer, baked goods that didn't actually have the whole grain in them, right? It had been milled off, refined out. Well, when you're eating anything that's refined, it actually steals in order for your body to metabolize it, because it's at a negative, right? Distilled water can also be like this. So if you're going to drink distilled water, you should actually really add nutrient to it. Or, herbal plants or something that can actually add to it. And, you could have like an infused water. But you have to put something back in it, because if it goes in, it's going to take away. And it's going to take away things that are important. And it's going to leave huge gaps in your health and your ability to think, because data information that's missing plays out in a lot of different ways. It can play out in mental illness. It can actually cause physical, like, your lots of crooked teeth, different kinds of genetic issues, can play into it. So let's go to the blog and let's just take a look at the blog. And then we can keep going. Let me go here. All right. 20 minutes with Bridgette, June 23rd, missing data and information, health, part 1. Okay. So I like this, visual image because, you would be a whole puzzle, but there's something that is missing. Well, when people start to get, a lot of bad health over a long period, or having hormonal disruptions, which is the data and information missing, but it's the thyroid. So say, for example, the thyroid, people can actually hallucinate in a not so good way if they are iodine deficient, because the thyroid does all kinds of crazy things. The endocrine system is super important for spiritual development. It's super important for mental development. It's super important for emotional development, super important for physical development, right? So if the thyroid is intaking chlorine through the regular water system, or fluoride that's in the water in all kinds of different products, everything basically that has water in it, and because most water systems have types of fluoride, and then also bromine, which a lot of swimming pools and jacuzzis and stuff like that have in it. So if you're iodine depleted, in most cases Americans are going to be super iodine depleted. Like in places like Japan, people eat like 3,000 units of iodine a day, right? We eat like maybe nothing. I mean, we have to iodize salt, the crappy salt, right? And they actually iodize it so that because otherwise there'd be even way worse health problems because of the deficiency. So if you don't getting iodine in your thyroid, then your thyroid is going to try to replace it with something from the environment that is similar: chlorine, bromine, and fluoride, right? It's going to actually pull that in. Well, it's going to damage it. The thyroid is going to even work worse because it's trying to actually regain, using whatever it can in order to get that data and information back in, so that that area can work, at the highest, scale and achievement possible. So health is like a lot about missing data and information. So I have a link here with chromosomes, nutritional, infection, inflammatory disease, EDTA. EDTA is pretty scary stuff. It's actually something that's used in chelation for people that get certain types of heavy metal poisoning, like lead, mercury, to actually pull out that stuff and get rid of it out of the body. But EDTA, they put in everything. Turns out that they put EDTA in water and food. So say, for example, you go to a restaurant that they get all of their vegetables pre-chopped, right, from a company, and it's like 2 weeks that it takes to get it to them. They put it in a water solution with EDTA in it, right? And this is where people start to get people that have compromised chemical effects, people that have, they can't smell certain things, they can't have the stuff on their bodies, they can't ingest it because they get like chemical burns. And EDTA over time will do that, right? Because the more that you're exposed to it, the worse your reaction from your body gets to it, and it's in everything. I was even at Trader Joe's because I have a friend of mine who has chemical environmental sensitivity. So we ended up spending, just trying to find a place when she came to visit a few years ago, a place to eat was like unbelievable. And I couldn't believe it. I was just shocked that we're not talking about this. But if she eats anything now that has EDTA in it, she'll get like a burn on her lips, and then burns will like develop chemical burns in her mouth. That's how sensitive she is to it. So we were trying to call all over to all these different restaurants, and they didn't know if they had EDTA in their food or not, or if, so we had, it just shocked me. And then so I had to get her some products. So one of the places I went was like Trader Joe's, and all the bathing products there that I was going to try to get for the house, they all had EDTA in it. So you start using that, and what EDTA is pulls out and off. So what happens is you use it in lotion, you use it cosmetically, you use it on your hair, you use products. It actually pulls the information and data out of your system. So the nutrient, it'll just strip everything in your body inside and out. So you're going to miss a lot of information data and start to have major health issues. Like that puzzle, you'll have missing pieces. The more missing pieces you have, the more you die, right? That's when you die. And that's when it's too late to actually start to try to put these pieces back. So a lot of it has to do with food and diet, nutrition. Some of it happened way long before you got here. So you have like you have to work harder. And so let me look in here. Plastics, oh my God, BPA. It changes your endocrine system, right? And it forces your body to produce estrogen, high amounts of estrogen. You wonder why people are angry? Ooh, people have no idea what estrogen makes you. It's, the places that can push you. Let's see. And so there's some stuff there. Oh, and then there's this quote that I really liked, and then I'll finish up here. But every human being is a puzzle of need. Learn to be the missing piece, and they will give you anything. Red Arrow. Anyway, it was a kind of a good quote. Because that's it. I mean, we're missing so much data and information that I even sometimes think that it shows up in us being needy, because, we are missing data and information. And so like the psychological, aspects of our brain could get more needier because we need something, but we're not really looking at it that way. We're not really going, wow, I feel really needy and kind of emotional today. And maybe what am I missing? What am I missing out? Sitting outside on a rock, eating a really good breakfast, and, doing something, that actually starts to put that information and data back in, because the whole system is designed to take data and information out and traffic it, right? So even on the spiritual levels, that's what's going on. So I just wanted to kind of look over my notes for this one. And so I just wanted to look. Yeah, and if the food doesn't have nutrient in the soil, you're missing the data and information. Doesn't matter if you eat raw food. I mean, all these things have to take into consideration, which leads us to more of a sustainable lifestyle, like growing our food. We buy a house because the yard is conducive to growing food for my family, not because, it has a 3-car garage, because you can't grow food there. You're living unsustainably. So sometimes too, I think the more missing pieces of your puzzle you have, the more you want other things to fill those missing pieces. So we can look at it psychologically, mentally, emotionally, and physically, and how, we act out in the things that we're interested in and what we go for. So let's see. I just wanted to kind of look over this really quick. Yeah, so say for example, I'm just going to talk briefly kind of about mushrooms and mushrooms in health, and why, mushrooms in health are so significant, and, the amazing things that they can do. Well, there's so much data and information packed. This is what they do. They work on they collect and give out data, right? And sometimes they collect data, change the data to put it out into the system. And so mycelium, so if you get a mushroom, that's the flower from the mycelium growing underground. And the mycelium grows underground, and it's a communication device in the soil and the earth with all the plants. Now, mushrooms are some of the most amazing things for everything, especially medicinally, because one of the things that they do is they can just, depending, so say for example, you're having like kind of immune system problems, or you're having like an autoimmune stuff that's going on, recommend astragalus and reishi blend, right? That reishi mushroom will go into those immune system areas, and it will like spread out its data, so nothing can get in. So if you can't figure out like what the missing pieces are, chromosomal and DNA, you're probably going to have to deal with some of that stuff. But you can always make sure your nutrition and your input, what's going in, is actually beneficial versus causing more destruction and damage. But mushrooms can go in there and hold the space in those areas. Some of them work respiratorily, which would be really good for right now with the COVID, like turkey tail and some of these. So you can get some really good, look for quality medicinal mushrooms on the market. There are some people that are making coffees and hot chocolates with medicinal mushrooms that you could actually take every day, right? So those things can actually, that fungi that's in the beneficial, in the good pleomorphic state, can go into the body and actually hold the space and keep things from getting in, keep viruses from getting in, keep tumors and cancer away, because things aren't going to get into those areas and invade them. And then you can work on your diet and nutrition and cleaning up your environmental mess. Everything that's in places we live is an environmental mess. So, all right, so I mean, think about like B12, and if you're missing B12 and how unbelievable that is, you can actually start to have some serious mental health problems, even like suicidal, homicidal, because what happens is B12 coats, like you have wires in your wall. If the wires were all open and exposed in proximity, you would like catch a fire, have an explosion. But because they coat the wires, they can be next to each other, right? So it sends the conductivity through. So B12, that's the coating on wire. So if you don't have B12, you start to fry. So your liver, also deals with a lot of the B12. So what happens is you start to have system failures, and then so much so that you actually can go into a coma. So if you don't have the information and data of B12, because of it, helps to add the information and data, which is the coding on the wiring, and you don't have this stuff, then, basically without the B12, you kind of, your nervous system fries and your brain shuts down. So that's why it's so important to really, try to figure out what the best data and information is. I mean, always growing food chemical free and full circle as possible in your yard, which means even creating your own compost, having a relationship with all that stuff, ultimately is really the only thing that you can really do for your health, to actually generate enough inner information and data constantly into your system, and you're cleaning up your environment as well. So let's see. Yeah. Oh, structural problems can cause huge. So this is where I come in at, as a traditional osteopath, is that, for 30 years, I've been being trained and learning about people's structural operating systems, and how those structural systems have to be in good alignment. They have to be in good shape, because the spine starts to collapse. A lot of these things start to happen. Then our brain and body can't communicate the data and information between those parts. Your brain is the hard drive, sends signals down through your body. If those signals get blocked because there's spinal problems or vertebrae problems or whatever else, structural problems, knee problems, ankle problems, wrist problems, neck problems, then the data and information isn't going to get back and forth from the brain to those areas so that the brain can regenerate it. Those systems will be closed off, and they'll be in degeneration, and they'll be disconnected. So, there's so many avenues that, where this information and data thing takes place, but yet they've separatized things, right? The spine, the muscle system, vitamins, nutrient diet, it's all different aspects. It should all be the same thing, because it's all data and information. You just have to figure out which ones you're missing, and how to incorporate more data and information in the beneficial way, in the natural way, in the healthy way, in the sustainable way, instead of the digital way that's being pressed upon us in these lifestyles that we're living. Okay, so also, you would be missing, I mean, there is scientific proof to actually support this. that, walking on the ground with bare feet or laying on the ground or, connecting with the ground actually has magnificent and huge healing potential. There was an institute that did a study in Alaska where they would bury people in the ground, leaving your head out just to see for, long periods of time, and people would heal like quite a few of their problems or data and information problems. And their health would like greatly improve. And I think it's called earthing. They've actually put a name to it now, where, it used to be grounding and being, and, it used to be a natural thing that you were outside and barefoot, right? Which, starts to bring into, how healthy is it to live above the first floor, because you're missing a lot of data and information. Sunlight is data and information. You're going outside, you're taking in that sunlight. There's so much data and information in sun rays that is being, emanated onto the planet. I mean, obviously the plants get it, they're picking up on it. So, we need to get out in it a little bit more. So we're collecting more data and information, which, we could say is like vitamin D. So, I mean, basically preventative of cancer for like, especially colon type cancers. I mean, tons of cancers. Vitamin D from the sun, right? Now, I mean, so many people take vitamin D in a supplement. It's ridiculous. Just shows you like, how disconnected. And so we're having people manufacture data and information that we're taking into our body, which is not the same as the real thing. Right? So that's changing you as well. I'm not saying don't do it. Sometimes you've got to fake it till you make it. You've got to, get some stuff in there because there's so much data and information missing. But as you get, up on it, then you can actually, get closer and closer and back kind of out into nature settings for a lot of the stuff. Water has a lot of data and information. A lot of ours is dead, has fluoride, it has all kinds of industrial chemicals in it. Everywhere in the United States, some company is dumping their water into the river. They dump sewage into all the waterways. So, when water's reclamated or whatever else, and, all the microwave radiation is changing the structure of the water. It's heating it up, it's changing the molecular structure of it. So, we're missing a lot of the sunlight and the water as it's coming from the snowbanks, and it's undulating in the waterways, and it's collecting oxygen, and it's basically pulling off as it goes because it's a solvent. It can, be a little bit corrosive sometimes. And it's pulling off the nutrient out of the rocks and the stones, and the sand is actually helping to filter it and clean it. And so by us not being able actually to drink from waterways because of what's in it, we're missing a lot of data and information for our electronical system, because not only would we get sunlight and data and information from that, which we would call, vitamin D and other nutrients, if we're intaking it through the skin, but we're also missing that sunlight in water, and we're also missing that sunlight in food, right? Because if you're eating food that's fresh right from your yard, it has the sunlight component in it, right? Which is a whole other, level of nutrition that we just don't seem to actually get. And so we have to keep moving, closer to nature in a good way, and so that we can start getting data and information back in us. So let's see, you overly cook your food, or you regularly eat pasteurized and homogenized, that stuff's cooked. And they say that 1 tablespoon of milk can kill all the microbial mass, or people want to call it, in their colon, probiotic. It can kill all of that, in one teaspoon. So getting away from homogenized and pasteurized stuff that's been cooked, anything over 80 degrees is going to take out anything beneficial in it. So, keep that in mind. And let's see what else I've got here for you. Just try to give you some kind of ideas. And also, let's talk about just, here at the very end is too much sterility. there are a lot of hand sanitizers and hand washes that actually have types of antibiotics in them. And there have been studies that have been done that show by using them and washing your hands with these antibiotics that it actually makes your immune system bad, right? Because now you have kind of like too many antibiotics in your system, and at that point, your body can't fight, and there's nothing inside of it that's good anymore to actually fight off anything bad. So it makes you like way more susceptible. A lot of the food we eat that's general, especially meat, animal products, you know, mostly that you're going to get, are being fed things that they shouldn't be fed, right? And one of them is antibiotics, and they're injected with antibiotics. And then they're also vaccinated and all this other stuff. So the animals are kind of being sterilized kind of like at birth and through their life, right? To keep them in close proximity for a period of time, because it's not a long-term thing before they slaughter them. So we have sterility in that too. We also have sterility in the soil and the dirt because of all the stuff that's sprayed all the time. Like, you know, now they used to just kind of like mow it and hack it down, the people who kept the river in this area in the agricultural ditches. Now they're spraying this green poison that if you move the dirt, you know, you can see it attached to the dirt. So here, you know, it's right along the water bank. You know, it's a pesticide, herbicide, and it just shocks me. It just shocks me. I mean, talk about endocrine system like meltdown. So that's sterilizing our environment. Plus, it kills. You know, if it kills a grass or it kills an insect, it's just a matter of time before it kills you. All right. So environments are sterile. We go into areas that are overly too sterile. You know, our gut needs bacteria. Our gut needs microbes. Our gut needs to be exposed to things so that it can build, and our bodies can build an immune system to it. We're, you know, spending way too much time using some of these products. Vinegar and water works on everything. And you know what? It's a natural insect repellent. Yeah, vinegar and water can go a long way and making your environments a lot better for your animals and yourself. Yeah, so yep, you got to watch the sterility. Watch the sterility that you're ingesting, the sterility that you're operating in, the sterility, you know, just everywhere and everything. So, you know, get more mud on you. All right, that's it. There's going to be a part 2 next week. So anyway, that's today, and Bridgette Lynn Dolgoff, and I'm over now. Have a great day. Bye-bye.